Welcome. My name is Peter Strong and I specialize in mindfulness therapy, which I offer online over Skype. If you'd like to learn how to overcome OCD intrusive thoughts, then mindfulness therapy is well worth considering. The mindfulness approach that I teach is extremely effective for working with intrusive thoughts, with obsessive thoughts that basically seem to continue without any kind of break, that dominate the mind and that keep reoccurring over and over again. Intrusive thoughts are quite problematic and are a source of tremendous suffering for people. So if you're suffering from intrusive thoughts and OCD in general, then you might want to start looking into mindfulness therapy for controlling these thoughts. The basic principle for controlling OCD intrusive thoughts is to learn how to change your relationship to those thoughts. We must stop avoiding those thoughts. We must not indulge in any kind of distraction behaviors to try and avoid those thoughts. And we must also change our relationship from one of aversion or hostility or resistance to one of friendliness and actually working with those thoughts in a non-aversive manner. So developing inner friendliness towards intrusive thoughts is really important. If you don't, and if you develop hatred for those thoughts or struggle with them, you will simply make them stronger. So in mindfulness training, we learn how to hold intrusive thoughts in the mind without becoming overwhelmed by them. We learn to actually see the intrusive thought as simply an object in the mind. We actually work on giving it an image, and we make sure that we stay separate and larger than that object image of the thought. That's the most important thing, changing the way that you see the thoughts in the mind. One common practice that we develop in mindfulness for intrusive thoughts is actually to imagine not only seeing the thought as an object in the mind, but actually moving the thought out of the mind and placing it on the floor. For example, taking the thought and moving it is very effective for working with intrusive thoughts because it essentially makes the thought smaller and it prevents this problem of reactive identification where we become, if you like, consumed by the thought. When that happens, the thought itself becomes bigger than we are. That's what happens when we become identified with the thought. We shrink into the thought, we contract into the thought, and that we have to avoid at all costs. So by actively working with thoughts using mindfulness, we can learn how to develop a balance in which we stay bigger than the thought, in which we stay in an expanded state of consciousness. And the thought simply becomes a small object within that space. And then we can play with that object in various ways, such as moving it. This is a very effective technique that you can try yourself. Try moving the thought and move it to a lower level in your mind, in your visual field, in your imagination. Intrusive thoughts typically occur at a high level in the mind, usually at a head level, and that position is what gives the thoughts power, emotional power. That's what makes them so strong. When you move those thoughts from that position at eye level, at the head level, and move them and put them on the floor, that action of lowering the thoughts to a lower level greatly reduces the intensity of the thought. So by working with the intrusive thoughts in this way, using mindfulness and creative imagination, you can essentially disarm the thought. You take away its emotional intensity, and when you do that, the thought ceases to stay in the mind. It begins to just fade away quite naturally when you take away the emotional charge of the thought. So this is something you can try yourself. Greet the thoughts in a friendly way. That friendliness actually makes you bigger than the thought itself. It changes the imagery. Then take the thought and move it and put it on the floor, and see how that works for you. If you would like more detailed help with working with intrusive thoughts using mindfulness therapy, then do please go to my website and then email me, and we can schedule a Skype therapy session to help you overcome your OCD intrusive thoughts. Thank you.